Hi, welcome to episode 398 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be, and I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun yarns and my knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, November 7th. It is the day before the US elections. Please go vote. And I hope that you are having a good week so far. It has been somewhat of a light Monday for me, which is kind of interesting. I am gearing up for everything that's coming because, of course, a lot of my clients are retailers, so they are getting ready for Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, etc. But it has been a pretty quiet day so far, and I will take it. The weather is a little bit gloomy here outside at Kansas City, but not too bad. There's been fleeting sun, but it is a little bit gray and overcast today. And mostly I am just concentrating on catching up. I did have a lovely weekend. Last week I worked ahead. I should say, I have a variety of jobs. I have something that I do that is kind of half to 2/3 time, and then I have a bunch of other little jobs that I do. It's the gig economy, I guess. And so the last several months I have been working most weekends. And last week I decided enough was enough, and I got up an hour or so earlier every single day so that I could get more work into the daylight hours, and then so I did not have to work on the weekends. And I am delighted to say that it totally worked, and that it really made my weekends really nice because I had all this extra crafting time that I had been missing for so long because I had been working most Saturday and Sunday afternoons for the last several months. So I'm on that track again this week. As soon as I finish recording the podcast, I'm going to do a few more things and work up until 5 p.m. before I take a break for the day so that I can work ahead and still have some time this weekend. But all of that means that I have lots of crafting to show you, which I'm very pleased about. And I started the week feeling a little bit more refreshed. So despite the fact that I love lying in the mornings and not getting up super early, and I'm still not getting up super early, but I am trying to get up a little bit earlier. So let's start. Today I am sort of going back and forth between Kansas and London. I say that because I am drinking my London tea, which was something that I bought in Covent Gardens at the tea house when I was there last, which is almost, 3.5 years ago. So it has been a while, but it was a lovely tea shop. And if you are in the UK, you should totally go check it out. And this is just a plain black tea. It's Darjeeling and Ceylon, and it's just a good pick-me-up in the afternoon, or a good plain tea to start the day with. I do like flavored teas, but in this case I'm just doing the plain teas. So this is London tea, and I say I'm going back and forth between Kansas and London because I am drinking it in my Kansas mug. Kansas gets a lot of Wizard of Oz jokes, and of course this is the one that says, "Dear Dorothy, hate Oz, took the shoes, find your own way home," and you've got Toto running along. So that is what I am drinking from today. I love this mug, I love this tea, and so I'm going back and forth. That's hot. So let's talk about what I have been knitting this week. That's primarily what I have to show you. We'll talk about the project that's been on the needles the longest, and that is the Snow Mantra shawl by Svetlana Gordon. This is a shawl that is a combination of some short rows, a bunch of different colors, and some I-cord, and it makes just a shawl with a lot of kind of wiggly shapes and a lot of dense fun. And I have made quite a bit of progress on this since I last saw you. I am now through the couple of pink sections down here, and I'm back to the white for a little bit before I finish out in the pink. So this shawl has tons and tons of sections to it, and I am about almost 2/3 of the way done section-wise, although not knit-wise. So as you can see, we've got some short row shaping that makes all these fun dips and squiggles, and that is created with a series of a bunch of increasing and decreasing, and then there's also some short row in there. And as you can see, I'm playing with colors using the multicolored gradient throughout, which kind of started at a green, very green and teal, moved into a grassier green, and now is moving into kind of some fall colors almost, some oranges and pinks and lighter greens and fun stuff. And then I have my two background colors, which are a natural and a pink. So that is what I'm working on. The rows are very intense. I am up to almost 500 stitches now, and I know it doesn't look like that much, but all this twisting back and forth in on itself creates lots and lots of stitches. So like I said, I am up to about 500 stitches. I am about to pick the stitches back up again. This shawl uses techniques, like I said, large amounts of increases and decreases, I-cord, which is basically I-cord cast off, and then you pick up again to do the next section. So that is kind of where I'm at right now. That's what I'll work on this evening. This is being knit in 3 colors from Zen Yarn Garden. It is all the same base, although it is 2 separate put-ups. The base is their Serenity Silk Plus, which is 75% superwash merino, 15% cashmere, 10% silk. And that is the base yarn, and I am knitting it in 2 colorways, which is a natural undyed colorway and then kind of a petal bubblegum pink colorway, and I'm using these as my background colors for some of what's going on. And then the third color that I'm using is the same base but a slightly different put up. This is 150 grams, 750 yards, and it is a Luxe Blank / Cake. Now the way this works is blanks, if you have knit with a blank before, what happens is a dyer, either you can purchase them this way or you can make them this way. A blank is basically a bunch of undyed yarn that has been knit up into, usually using a machine, a knitting machine, that has been knit up into what basically looks like a scarf. It's very loosely knit, like I said, it's on the machine, and then what happens is you lay it flat and you can lay it out and paint dye on it, and this is what Zen Yarn Garden does. And then they offer it in 2 put-ups. One is that it can come just in this blank, which you can use to knit wraps or socks or anything you would like. You can just knit off of it. It does give you yarn that is a little bit crinkly, a little bit almost like ramen. Let me see if I can find, oh, it's still attached, but I'll show you right here. It looks a little bit like ramen when you pull it off the blank, but it is easy to knit with, and as soon as you wash it and block it, it will hold its new shape. Or one of the things they do is they wind it into cakes. So again, I am working from a blank, and I am about halfway, maybe a little less than halfway through the blank at this point, which makes sense because I still have quite a bit of knitting to do. Like I said, I am in this middle section that combines oranges and reds and purples and pinks and greens, and it is very fall colors, and then I will go back out into the green and into the teal, and I don't know how far I'll get through the blank. I should get most of the way through. The pattern itself calls to be worked in 3 skeins of yarn, and so I'm not, it's meant to be worked, actually technically it's, the pattern is called to be worked in 2 colorways, and you have one colorway where you have 1 skein and one colorway where you have 2 skeins. So we are kind of playing with the pattern a little bit and using 2 background colors and then the gradient always as the second color. Basically the shawl pattern has you use colors a little bit differently. Basically what I'm getting at is that at the end I don't know exactly how far I will get through the gradient. I hope I will get most of the way through the gradient. I think I will, based on the fact that the rows are really long and have so many stitches in them at this point, but I don't know if I'll get all the way to the end of the gradient, and so I may end up finishing more in the green section than in the teal section. That's really all I'm trying to say. So that is a beautiful gradient from Zen Yarn Garden, and again, this is roughly where I am at now. I expect it to block out to be quite large, and like I said, I still have quite a few sections to go. So yeah, my guess is you'll see this. I would love to finish this by Thanksgiving week, but I'm not sure whether I will be able to do that. We're just going to have to see how much knitting time I have and how much each section takes me. It used to be, like in the very beginning, I could do like 2 sections a night, and then I was down to 1 section a night, and now I'm really down to a partial section a night. So it's just we're just gonna have to see as this grows. As I said, I'm up to almost 500 stitches now, and I think at the end I'm gonna have between 750 and 800. So it's a lot of stitches, but it really, it comes out beautifully, and it really is going to be a stunning shawl. So, and my guess is, well, I know there will be kits for this because this is a sample that I'm knitting for Zen Yarn Garden, and my assumption is there will probably also be a class in the spring. So if this is something you want to tackle, I will say that it is challenging in the sense that in the first couple sections, you kind of have to figure your way out around it, and some of the increases and decreases are a little fiddly, so it takes some getting used to. But once you get used to it, it's just basically the same pattern repeat over and over as the shawl grows. So you do all your learning in these few sections that are small, and then later on, you just kind of have to get through the bigger sections. So if this is something you're interested in, there will be a kit and most likely a class. But again, this is the Snow Mantra shawl by Svetlana Gordon, and I'm knitting it as a sample for Zen Yarn Garden. So that is the first thing on the needles. The second thing on the needles has only seen a bit of work, and I'm a little embarrassed to be bringing it back, but I figured I might as well since it saw a little bit of work this week, and that is Miles' socks. And I put a couple inches on this week because I basically, last time I had just turned the heel, and so I was getting ready to do the gusset. And so I have done all my gusset decreases, and now I'm into the foot. So I've done, you know, from here to here, which is maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches, not a lot, but it has a little bit more done. Again, these are plain vanilla socks. I did misspeak last week when I said who the yarn was by. This is actually Farmer's Daughter Fibers in their Squish base, which is 100% superwash merino, and I cannot remember the colorway that it's in. I'll have to look again, but it reminds me of kind of a pine forest or fir forest, kind of greens and blues and a wintry theme, and I'm enjoying these socks. Basically, they just haven't gotten a lot of time because I've been busy doing other things, but we went out and ran some errands this weekend and did just a little bit of holiday shopping, and so I had lots of car knitting time in between, and that's kind of how I got a little further along. Obviously, I would like to finish these by Thanksgiving because they are a gift to be given roughly Thanksgiving weekend. So I definitely need to crank on these a little bit more this week, and I'll be working on those. So the final project that I've been working on is my sweater from Yeni Suemo, and I talked about it, and the cast on was officially Tuesday. Let me think about this. Monday was Halloween, Tuesday was November 1st. So now I'm going to come clean about a lot of things and talk about some patterns and intentions and whatnot. So I cheated and I cast on for my sweater on October 31st because I had been working on a lot of projects for work and I hadn't done anything that was really for myself in a while. And I decided that Halloween night, we didn't buy any candy because we almost never get any trick-or-treaters. And I was feeling a little bit blue about that. And I was like, I'm going to reward myself with a fun treat and I'm going to cast on my sweater. So I cast on the sweater. And I did the collar, and then I started to do the short row shaping, and I started to go into the striping. And the sweater pattern that I was using at the time was Stripes, which is by Andrea Mowry. And it is a top-down in the round yoke sweater that is basically just stripes. And the stripes are a little more than 1 inch, and I was going to do it in 2 colors. So I got to one of the sections of increases, and I didn't understand what the pattern was saying. And so I stopped and I emailed the designer, and I thought I could kind of figure it out, but I stopped and emailed the designer, and I got back some interesting answers to my query. And there were 2 things about it that were kind of off-putting to me. One was that the terminology was just really kind of weird, and I should say, it's going to make me sound snotty, I am a knitting pattern tech editor, which I think I've talked about before. And while there is no 100%, this is absolutely the way you have to do it standard of knitting, there are a lot of commonly accepted conventions in knitting. And use of certain phrases, use of certain repetitions, use kind of the way you explain things. And I have to tell you, I was a little bit put off because the designer was using increases and was doing things in a non-standard way, and to me that just really frustrates me when people don't use kind of the standard accepted conventions when they make up their own things. And it's not that I don't think knitting can be creative, but we as knitters don't learn the way that we used to. So originally when you were learning knitting, you were learning it basically at someone's knee. You were sitting with them and you were crafting for hours and hours, and they were teaching you over time how to do things. And today's knitters, we learn from a variety of methods. Some of us are lucky enough to have someone teach us. Many of us learn from classes, many of us are self-taught, and we fill in all the gaps with YouTube videos and books and magazines and those kinds of things. And so I feel like our knowledge is not entirely complete because we don't kind of learn it from the ground up the way we used to, and we don't have someone teaching us throughout the years. We're kind of building our skill set. And to me, it is frustrating to kind of understand the way things work in knitting and have a good idea of how things happen, and then have somebody basically tell you, no, don't do it the regular way, do it my way. So that's kind of my bratty reason for not continuing in the pattern. My other reason for not continuing in the pattern, and this is a personal preference / technical difficulty thing that I find difficult in knitting. I really liked the idea of knitting a top-down in the round yoke sweater. But what I realized was that because I was knitting a top-down in the round yoke sweater, I was going to constantly have to deal with stripe changes. And the issue is that I was going to have to weave in lots of ends, and I was going to have to figure out how to manage my stripes such that, so when we knit, when we are knitting in the round, technically our start stitch and end stitch don't line up. Because when you are knitting in the round, you are actually knitting a helix that subtly builds on itself. So part of the reason that we have trouble when we knit stripes in the round and we have something that's called a jog, where it's kind of obvious that the stripes don't line up, is because when you start knitting at your first stitch and you go all the way around and you end up at the end stitch over here, this stitch is getting ready to stack on, the next row is going to start on top. And that kind of makes this stitch stretch so that you end up having something that doesn't quite line up. Now there are a lot of methods for managing this, and the designer does go into that in the pattern. My own personal technical difficulty is that I can never make that jog look quite right. And I find it really frustrating because I am a very type A personality. And I really want those stripes to exactly line up, and that just really frustrates me. Plus, because the stripes were of significant enough width, I did not want to carry my yarn between them, which meant I was always going to have extra ends to weave in, and the deal was that because it was a top down in the round, at least for the top of the yoke, that seam was going to be at the back of the sweater. Now, at least it was going to be at the back of the sweater rather than the front of the sweater, but to me, the idea that I would have kind of an obvious line on the back where things didn't quite line up and where there was going to be a bunch of extra bulk as I wove in my ends, I was really not pleased with that. So that is the second reason that I decided not to knit that pattern. So then I went looking for, well, so I have a couple things. One is cheaters never prosper, because even though I let myself cast on early, I ended up having to rip that all out and start over, so I really didn't get a head start on my Nini Swaymo project. And two, I again had to decided to change my pattern and kind of had to figure out what I wanted to do from there. Because I had had my heart set on something that kind of looked like that, I had to sort of take a moment and regroup and then look for other things. What I ultimately settled on is something that is quite different aesthetically speaking, but is going to work more with the things that the qualities that I want the sweater to have. So the pattern that I ended up going with is called the Northwoods V-neck sweater, which is by Jessie Made Designs. And it is a basically top-down sweater with drop sleeves, and I'll explain a little bit about the construction without giving too much away, and I'll show you what I have. So it is a top-down seamless sweater. It has drop shoulder sleeves, and it has a big V-neck, which I'm going to modify a little bit. And the reason that I chose it was because it fit the gauge of my yarn and what I was knitting at. It was stripy, it was kind of fun, and I thought that I could alter it to suit what I want. The biggest difference is that while Stripes was a fairly close fitting and a little bit more form-fitting shaped sweater, Northwoods is kind of oversized and a little bulky. Now, I will say that one of the test knitters knit it with negative ease, and I think it looks great on them. I chose not to do that. I chose to knit my size with between 4 and 6 inches of positive ease, so it is going to be kind of a bulky pullover. It's in a DK weight, but because it's going to be kind of oversized, it's going to be kind of a bulky pullover, and it calls for a cropped waist. So you will remember last week I talked about maybe making something tunic length. That is not going to happen now. So, the Northwoods pattern, basically, the construction is that you start at the shoulders and you work down from the shoulders for the back, and then you work down from the shoulders for the front, and then technically you are meant to join in the round and work the rest of the body down in the round. But of course, what I said was that I have problems with knitting stripes in the round, and I don't like the jog that creates. So what I decided to do was actually work the shoulders down to the back hem and the shoulders down to the front hem, basically back and forth, so that then I can seam up the sides, which will give me a really nice seam where I can match up my my stripes exactly. And then, rather than knit the sleeves in the round, I'm going to knit the sleeves flat as well and then seam up under the sleeves so that the stripes line up perfectly. Now, you do not have to do this. Again, that is not the way the pattern is written precisely. I mean, it is written to cast on at the shoulders and work down the back and down the front. So that part is, but you can knit in the round if you would like to. I just am choosing not to. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit my sweater, and then I'm going to do the T seams right here. And that is an acceptable alternative to me. So I'm really, really pleased with that. And with that, I would like to show you my progress. So the front and the back are the same lengths right now. I did make a couple modifications, mostly on the front pieces. So I will tell you, like I said, you are casting on at the shoulders, and you can see I have something kind of vaguely sweater shaped, and it is going to be oversized here. But there is quite a bit of ribbing at the neckline, so this neckline that seems huge is not actually going to be quite as big as it looks. So the one thing that I did, because I did not want the V-neck to be as deep as it is in the pattern, and the pattern designer gives you a bunch of ways to modify that so that the V-neck is not quite as deep, but I decided, since I kind of originally had my heart set on a little bit more of a scoop neck, I decided to sort of make this a cross between a V-neck and a scoop neck, and we will see how successful I was when I get a little bit more into the pattern. But so basically this is what I have here, and what you are looking at is the shoulders are at the top here, and this solid piece is the back of the sweater. So this is the back of my sweater. And you can see that the stripes are knitting up beautifully, and I'm using these are TKB cords. They are the bakery something. Basically, it's silicone tubing that you can use in place of needles, and the nice part is that you can actually slip the silicone tubing over your needle and flip the stitches over so that you can put stitches on hold. So right now I have my back of neck stitches on hold for my ribbing, and my guess is I'm going to do the neck. I'm going to do things out of order. I'll talk about this a little bit. Okay, so that is the back of my sweater. And then I worked from the shoulders down to get the two fronts of my sweater. And I worked as deep as I want the V-neck to be. And then what I did is I calculated how many more stitches I needed so that when I get down to the measurement that she gives you in the pattern is at the end of the V, you should have this many stitches, and then you join in the round. And so what I did is I calculated how many stitches I needed total for quote at the end of the V, and then I just cast on the stitches in between my two neck pieces, so that now I have kind of a little bit more of a scoop neck, as it were, and it's not quite as deep. So at this point, basically where I am at is I have equal front and back, and what I have done at this point is I believe I have gotten myself down to where the sleeves are. This is where you would build your sleeves, in this hole right here. And what I haven't decided yet is exactly how far I'm going to go on the front and the back, and when I'm going to do the sleeves, and when I'm going to do the the neck ribbing, because, as I said in the last one, I really would very much like to use up as much yarn as I can, while simultaneously making sure that all of my ribbing is done in the darker color. So part of what I'm doing is, if I finish the neck ribbing and I finish the sleeves, then I can put everything I have left into the body. And so the question is, how far do I think I want to go, so that I can go ahead and do that? And I think the answer to the question is that I think I'm going to finish this colorway is called Sugar Magnolia. I'm going to finish the white speckled stripe on both sides, and then I'm going to put those on hold, and I'm going to do the sleeves and the neck ribbing. So I think that's the answer to my question, because then I can use the rest of what I have to build out the body. And my guess is I will leave it somewhat cropped, because I do think that's going to be kind of important for the proportions of the sweater. But I might not make it quite as cropped as the sweater suggests, because generally I like my sweaters just a couple inches longer. And if I have the yarn, I'm going to do that. And then I just have to make sure that I save enough of this colorway, which is called Sexy Times, for the bottom ribbing of the sweater. So this is kind of a lesson in how you can take apart a pattern and make it work for you. I should say, just because I am doing this does not mean that I don't think the pattern is well written. Let me phrase that in a more positive sense. I think the pattern is extremely well written. It has been tech edited, it has been test knit, there are some beautiful versions of it on Ravelry. I think you can totally make the sweater exactly as she intended it in the pattern by using the pattern, and I think you can do so easily without much trouble. That said, I am modifying it for my personal preferences, aesthetic, etc., and I do believe that that is also a valid method. I do not think I know better than her, but I have decided to do it for what I know my skill set is and the way I would like the sweater to be constructed. So that is kind of a long-winded story about my Nanny Swaymo sweater. My hope is that I will get some more good time to work on it. I should say Nanny Swaymo technically runs between November 1st and November 30th. The challenge is to knit or crochet a sweater of 50,000 stitches. As of right now, I am at about 9,000 some odd stitches. So I'm a little behind where I could be for the fact that we're a week into this month, or it will be a week tomorrow. But I do think that I will get some extra knitting time over Thanksgiving weekend, because I'll have some car time, and because I'm only taking my favorite project with me so my hope is that I will finish these other two projects. This one needs to be finished because it's being gifted. This one I hope to finish just because I hope to get it out of here and off to photograph. And so my hope is that the only project that I will have left for Thanksgiving weekend is this one, and then I can take it and work on it basically monogamously for most of Thanksgiving week. We will be going to Chicago again this year to see family, and so that is a 7 to 8 hour drive each way, so that's car time that I can knit, plus I'll have time in the evenings and a little bit here and there. I won't get a ton of knitting done while I'm gone, but my hope is that I can get enough knitting done that I can crank out this sweater this month. So I am not eligible for prizes, so it doesn't really matter whether I hit 50,000 stitches or whether I finish it before November 30th, but my goal is to do both, and we will see how that goes. And given that I'm almost 20% in and I have not used I've not used a third of my yarn yet. I still have plenty of yarn left. So before I hit that point, I do think that I will have enough stitches. So that's where I'm at, but I hope I will have lots more progress to show you next week. And that is kind of my little story about what I'm doing and how I'm being a super special snowflake about my sweater this year. So that is mostly what I have to show you. I do have a finished spin, although it is not it's not pretty yet, because I just pulled it off the wheel this morning, and it really needs a good washing and blocking, and it's a little overplied, so I really need to do some of that. So this was a spin that I showed you, I think, 2 weeks ago. This was a braid from Hello Yarn in kind of some fall colorways. I'm trying to, well, that's close enough. That'll get you a little bit. It is called Tooth and Claw, and I started it right before Halloween week, and I thought it was kind of apropos, although it's not in Halloween colors or spooky colors. It looks very fall related to me. It's got lots of golds and pinks and a little bit in the way of oranges, and it is absolutely lovely. I had a little bit of trouble, so this is a somewhat lightweight skein. My guess is it's going to be around 300 yards of a sport to DK weight yarn, and it came in about 3.5 ounces, which is, her braids are definitely generous. She usually is at 4 or 4.1 ounces, but I had, my singles got twisted and then I had trouble applying them. So this will be a little bit of a lighter weight skein, which also means it'll be a little less expensive in the shop, and that is going up in the shop. I have my next spin on the wheel, and it is, I believe I believe it's an organic merino. I'll have to bring it back to show you. I believe it's an organic merino. It is from Two If by Hand, which are sadly no longer dying. It is the Mer People colorway, and it has lots of pinks and purples with splashes of yellow and green and blue. It's going to be gorgeous, and I can't wait to show it to you. Hopefully by next week I will have at least the bobbins, if not the plaid yarn, to show you, and this one will go up in the shop this week. So I think that's all the news that's fit to print. I've already talked your ear off for 30 minutes. So I hope that you have a wonderful week ahead. I hope you are not drowning in holiday crafting. I realized I may knit a few more holiday hats, but other than that and Miles socks, I am almost done crafting for the season, which is really nice because I think I'm going to spend December crafting for myself and finishing some projects. And that is making me super, super happy. I don't know why, but it's making me thrilled, the idea that I can just spend December kind of doing some selfish knitting. So I hope that you are getting through your gift list if you are knitting gifts. If you are not knitting gifts, then I hope you are enjoying something wonderfully fall or wintry and creating for yourself. And I will say, until I see you next time, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.